Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. So I'm out on the field today and I'm putting up some of Premier One's permanet. We don't necessarily have a dog in the race as far as which type of portable fencing you use. I know there's lots of different types. I just wanted to talk with you briefly about this woven type electric netting. I wanted to show you some tips and tricks as far as putting it up, keeping it tight. You know, we get a lot of questions from people and they're like, well, how do you keep it so darn tight? And how do you get it to go out right? And there's a couple little things that we do. The first thing that you'll notice is that I've mowed my runs. And the reason for that is really I want to provide an area on this side of the fence for my livestock guardian dogs to kind of patrol and see what's going on. The other thing is I need to be able to see in straight lines, and I don't want a lot of weed pressure on the fencing itself. All of these are hot. Essentially, when you look at this, what you're seeing is you've got a poly twisted line, and then inside that line you've got little strands of metal, and these little strands of metal are what electrify it. The only thing that's not going to be hot is your very bottom line right here. And if you don't get good ground contact, what can end up happening because of, you know, your weeds are too high or whatever, what can end up happening is your animals will get underneath this and they'll try to force it up. You can see that this is nice and tight. The reason this is nice and tight is because I've done a good job of pulling this out. You want to make sure that you keep these in a straight line, as straight as possible. When you have the pressure that comes on this line, it's going to be pulling this line. And if you get it too ziggy-zaggy, if they're offset from each other, when that line gets pulled tight, they're going to want to pull in, and it's going to end up giving you a little bit of buckling and some sagging in this fence. Now this one here is a little bit taller than some, and we have yet to figure out how to get all of the sagging out of this completely. Although I will be able to show you as we get down the line and we pull this tight, it will tighten up a little bit. You can see our back fence there is quite a bit tighter than this, and the reason for that is because we've wrapped around our end post down here. Now, this is the next thing that I want to tell you. First thing that I do is when I decide I'm going to put up my fencing, what I do is I go down and I mow my lines down. Now, I like to mow it extra wide. I like to mow it about the width of a brush hog. But for all intents and purposes, you could just use a push mower, but mowing it is very important. If you look at my actual pasture right here, you can see that, you know, in some places when I get out here, this stuff's up to my chin. It's very, very thick. We've got lots of grass, we got lots of clover, things like that. That fence is just not gonna lay over top of this. You're gonna have all kinds of problems. So mowing, you know, get a push mower, get a brush hog, get a weed whacker, get whatever it is that you need to do. This is probably the most important thing that I do. And this was something that we came up with here. If the people from Premier One are watching, feel free to reach out to me. We could always use you as a sponsor. That's a joke. We don't have any sponsors. We're just showing you this because this is what we use. When I do my corners, I like to use a T-post with a piece of PVC pipe over top of it. This is I'm trying to see what diameter this PVC is. I believe it is 2.5 inch. I will double check on that, but I believe this is Schedule 42.5 inch. So underneath this is actually a T-post. You can see my T-post down here. And what I do is I just slide my PVC over top of it. It insulates it so it doesn't short out, and it gives me a nice tight corner that I can pull around. If you're not using these, you're gonna have to try to do curves, and it's a pain in the butt. And for as inexpensive as this is actually gonna be cheaper in a lot of cases than going and buying your expensive you know, poly poles and stuff like that. And these are really, really sturdy. So I mow first, I go through second, I drive my T-posts and my corners, I put my PVC over top of it, and I go to town. We try to keep the lines as straight as possible. The next thing is connecting. I want to show you how to connect these together when you're running them, and I want to show you how I go about actually putting them in the ground. Now there are different types of netting fences. Some of them are going to have a double spike. If you look at this one is an actual double spike. You can see I've got two metal pieces that go down into the ground. If I had to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't go this route. I would probably go with the single spike drivable. These are not rated to drive with a rubber mallet, with a dead blow mallet from the top. If you need to drive these with a dead blow mallet, you actually have to do it down on the ground. I find that these bend. If you hit rocks and things like that, the teeth want to kind of splay out a little bit. Let's see, if we look at this one up here that I've got, I might be able to find some bent ones. Yeah, these look pretty good. I try to fix them as I go, but you can see this one's starting to get a little bit bent. What will happen sometimes is where this U is this piece will actually splay way out, and then you run into problems. You got to take care of this stuff. It's not necessarily super high maintenance, but when you're moving this stuff, when you're storing this stuff, you need to roll it up like we're rolling it up right here. If you get in the habit of starting to drag this stuff across the ground when you're moving it, it's going to get caught on things, it's going to break, and you're going to have all kinds of problems. It takes a little bit more time to roll it up, but it will save it in the long run. We've had this fencing for 5 or 6 years now, and it's lasting very, very well. When the girls start laying this out, I'll show you exactly how we do it. Now, some places online will tell you that, oh, this is a one-person job. You can do it by yourself, but to be quite honest with you, a minimum of 3 people really comes in handy. A minimum of 4 is ideal. But with that being said, let's get the girls to start rolling this out, and we'll show you how we go about setting this up, because the next thing I want to show you is how we tie these together. What we need to do in our roll is we need to find our end, and the way we roll it up, you can see that we've got it pretty much down pat. I've got Tess on one side, I'm on the other, and as we go, we're just going to drop this. So I'm going to drop this right here. We're not building the landing strip for the space shuttles here. As we go, we're just going to drop them out, and we're going to watch for tangles as we go. And I'm just walking my line, dropping this down on the ground. This way, if you get a hang up like this right here, you can fix it as you go. You're not going to be tearing up your fencing. Here's a good bent one. So I'm going to have to unbend that before I put that on the ground. That is my one complaint with these double spike ones. If you had really sandy soil, I think they'd be okay. Unfortunately, we've got rocky clay soil here, and this is what we ended up with. So I want to lay this out pretty tight. You're going to get some excess as you go through, and believe it or not, you're going to end up pulling it as you go down. There's another bent one. A lot of this is about maintenance. I'll tell you, if you don't take care of this fence, it'll maybe last you a year or 2. If you do take care of it, it should last you for quite a while. So we're going to work our way, now that we've laid this out, we're going to work our way back to the end, and we are going to hook up to our trailing end down here. You're going to see we've got 2 different heights here. I wanted to put these 2 different heights together so I can show you. Personally, this is, I think, a little overkill for sheep. This is 48 inch. Goats, I like it because they're not going to be able to jump over top of it. Sheep, we don't really worry too much about jumping. So the first thing you're going to notice when you pick this up, I'm going to pull a little of the slack back to me. First thing you're going to notice when you pick this up is these double teeth are going to want to go in one certain direction. It's either going to want to go inside or outside. In this case, it wants to go outside. So I want to place myself on the side that those teeth want to go in. And in this case, I'm just going to butt this right up against this existing one, and I'm going to try to step it in. Once I step it in down to the ground, if I start getting resistance, I can take my dead blow mallet. Do not hit it on the top, hit it down here at the ground. Now I've got it secure. So you can see the difference between the types that Premier has. You can see how much beefier this is compared to this. Next thing I want to show you is how to tie these together. So we are going to want to wrap these tails. These tails are how these connect together. They've got these little plate connectors that actually tie in just like this. The way we like to tie ours together to keep them nice and tight and for security purposes is I want to go opposite. I want to wrap opposite of one another. And it works out just about right. You can see I was able to wrap these together. Then I can push these together just like that. And now I've got a really nice secure. This actually secures these together fairly well, but just for safety's sake, I also like to take a zip tie. Not a big beefy one, just enough. I like to take my zip tie and just put a zip tie around this as well. So this is a really tight, nice, secure. These things are really tied together well. They're not going anywhere. And now I can start to work myself down the line. Now, ideally, if you have a fourth person right now, or a third person right now, my third person is my camera person, but what you can have is somebody down on the end that's spotting you and they're telling you, hey, you need to go in, you need to come out. So we have hand signals we use, you know, go in, go out, and if the person goes like this, it means it's good. We're not able to do that right now because we don't have enough people, but we are going to work our way down and keep ourselves as straight as possible. You can also follow the lines in the ground from the mower. When I am, and you can see what Tessa just did there, the problem a lot of people get is they pull way too tight on the top, and you can see this thing is leaning back. What I like to do is once I get it lined up, I like to take my foot and I like to hold it just till it's snug. And I like to level the post just like that, give it a little bit of downward pressure, and then step it in. So again, I'm snugging that with my foot. I'm getting it lined up. I'm snugging this with my foot. I don't want to really crank it down. If the pole is bending, it's too tight. So get in front of me here, Lindy, and you'll see if I pull it too tight, see how I start to get that bend in the pole down there? I want it just tight enough, just as tight as I can get to where that pole's nice and straight. Give it a little bit of downward pressure, step it in, and you can actually see that that line's starting to tighten up as you go down, and you can see that this is nice and tight and straight here. Work my way down. Hold it just snug, get my pressure, push it in. And again, if I need to give it a little bit of a hit to get it to set well, I can do that as well. So you can see how, when you look at this line, you can see how nice and tight that is. If I over tension it, it's just gonna end up bouncing back and it's gonna be loose. The key is all in the foot. And again, getting it as straight as possible. And once you get going, you can really zip through this. Luckily, we just got some rain yesterday, so our ground is soft. So you can see this one's bent. I want to correct this before I put it in the ground. That looks pretty good. I like to put this up after a rain. I think it just works a little bit better. The ground's a little bit softer. So normally I have my partners going ahead of me, setting them up, getting them ready. I'm coming along behind her, picking them up and going. If you don't cut your weeds before you try to put this stuff in, it's a disaster. Because what happens is it starts to bunch. You start getting a bunch underneath. And look at what it does to to that fence. Right now you can see it's nice and tight and smooth, and when I start to get pressure underneath, see how that fence starts to buckle and wave like that? That is no good. If you have any turns greater than 15, 20 degrees, you're gonna wanna drive your T-post and put your sleeve over top of it. Here's another one that's a little bit bent. I'm just gonna grab this and straighten this up. I've got my dirty French manicure, my farmer's manicures, I think that's what they call it. You know, people pay good money for this. If anybody wants to come out and help us one day, we can get you that manicure for free. The girls love it. And this isn't as straight as I would like it. I would normally have someone spotting me. You can see if you look down the line, as much as I try to keep it perfect, you can see that I'm off a little bit. So that's where having that extra helper really comes in handy. If you're going to be doing it by yourself, you could pull a string. We have about 4 miles of this fencing, so we have enough to do multiple paddocks. So we usually set ours up once at the beginning of the year, and then we don't do it anymore. Dragging this stuff is a disaster. If you want to tear it up and you don't want it to last, that's the fastest thing you can do to destroy this fencing. Just throw it down and start dragging it behind you. Sticks, branches, things like that get caught in this stuff. This is not real robust stuff. Stands up really great to wind because there's not a lot of surface area for it, but it does not handle dragging very well at all. Again, this section of fence right here that we have, it's probably 5 years old. So, you know, take care of your stuff. That's the best thing I can tell you. Just tightening it up with my foot. If you can get it as straight as possible, that is going to help out immensely. Because again, what ends up happening is as I pull that fence straight, if you watch, see the little zigzags I've got in there? Now watch, as I pull it tight, see how it wants to pull those in? If you get way out of whack, and that also causes bowing and bubbling in your fence. So if you're getting lots of bubbles and bows in your fence, it's probably because it's not very straight. While your top line will get tighter, some of that slack starts coming out in the line itself. All right, we're gonna take 5. I'm gonna continue on with my fencing, and then once we get to some of our drivable fences, I will come back and we will look at those drivable. So this is my preferred fencing. If I had to go with any brand from anybody, this is what I like. This is the Electrostop. It's drivable. This is the 1042-12, so 42 inches high. I really prefer these. I don't know if I had sand, if it would be strong enough, but for heavy clay soil, you can see I've got a nice, pretty heavy duty long spike in here. And then these are drivable. So when I set this one in the ground, it's as simple as taking my deadbolt hammer, driving it home. I don't have to do nearly as much bending. And there, it's good. I much prefer that. So again, I'm gonna go opposites. So I'm gonna go this one this way, this one this way. Sometimes it takes a little bit of finesse to get it where you want it. Clip these two together. You can see how I've clipped them together right there. take my zip tie, put my zip tie on just for insurance. Go from there. I think for you know, if you had to move it across really dense stuff like this, you know, the single strands may work better for you. We're big fans of this Electronet though. We've used Electronet from a couple different vendors. We've used from Ken Cove. It's all pretty much the same. I think this is probably the beefier stuff out of the group. The Ken Cove isn't as strong, but really it's just a matter of how well do you take care of it. But these drivable posts are the way to go for sure. I'm gonna continue putting up this line, and then once I am done, I'm gonna do some walk and talk with you to show you some problems that you may encounter. I'm also gonna show you why you wanna mow. Can't weed whack around this stuff. Can't really get too close to it with the mower either. Here's something right here. So see how this line is broken right here? You want to try to fix this stuff as you go. So in this case, I'm going to tie this up. It happens. There we go. Fixed. The sheep are angry. They know what's coming and they want to get over here. I would say if you're going to put this fencing up and you're going to leave it up for the season, spraying some weed killer along the bottom, along the run of it, can pay dividends. Because once it's in, it's almost impossible. You can't weed whack up against it. You'll cut it. You can't get close enough to it with the mower. Yep. So this is what happens when you don't mow and you don't spray. So when we initially put this fencing in, it was very, very short, and I actually didn't need to mow. Now you can see how all of this has grown up in here. The problem is every time these weeds are touching it, it's taking a little bit of voltage out of it. And if you get a hard rain and all of these weeds are wet, then you're in big trouble. The other thing that can happen is you can see how like these plants here have grown up. They're actually lifting this up as they go. We had some spots on our west wall where it had lifted it up almost this far. And then what ends up happening is your littles try to get out of it. The other thing I like about mowing is there's nothing on the other side. It doesn't really incentivize them to try to go through the fence to get to it. And like I said, our livestock guardian dog, Mavis, 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 come here. Hello, come here, Mavis. Come here and join the party. I knew she was close. Come here, Mavis. Hey. So Mavis just weaned 9 puppies, so she's a little thin, but she's one of our livestock guardian dogs. Having this path allows her to walk the perimeter and see what's coming. They really utilize this a lot at night. It works out really, really well. The other thing is the sheep use it, or the sheep and goats use it when they're mobilizing and when they're moving around. It's just an easier way. As you can imagine, you can see how high this is out here. You know, you can't even look out there right now and see there's 45 animals out here right now and you wouldn't know it. So, you know, it's hard for them to see one another. If they get spooked and they start to run, they'll hit this dry spot where the grass is low before they hit the fence. Otherwise, you got an animal that's bolting and they will literally run right into the fence. So a lot of reasons to keep this mowed down around the perimeter. If you get a saggy fence, like we've got a little bit of a sag in this area right here, you can see that's the nature of this taller fence. You can actually grab this and twist it up and around, grab this and twist it up and around, and it will tighten up the top of this significantly. So that's a little cheater trick for you if you need to tighten it up. Second best thing that we found that you can do is you can actually take a zip tie and you can zip tie a few of these together up against the pole like that, and that will help tighten it up as well. I'm not a huge fan of adding zip ties to it. Normally what I'll do is every other one I'll just go and wrap it around the top and it'll pull it up a little bit tighter. We've got all of our setup going on in here. I have my Lakeland feeder here. I need to clean out the bottom of it. It got a little bit dirty. I don't use this a lot out on the pasture, but I'll tell you what, it's got 20 plus spots. This is perfect. They can put their head in here and go down, get feed, and then lift their head up and come out. If I needed to give them something, if I was flushing, this works out perfectly. This is super duper heavy duty stuff. We purchased this. We did a lot of searching around. We ended up purchasing this from Lakeland, and I'll tell you, this is, yeah, I'm probably gonna end up buying 2 or 3 more of these things. So we did buy this. We're not sponsored by Lakeland. This is something that we did on our own. This is super heavy duty. Absolutely love it. This is my Lakeland creep feeder, and you can see I set it down here. I put my panels in and it's full of weeds. I don't worry too much about it because they will eat it down. This does 2 things for us. One, it allows us to be able to creep feed on pasture. It allows us to let our littles go out to pasture a little bit earlier than we might normally do off a dry lot in the springtime, and we can creep feed them. It also gives them some shade. They'll get in here and they'll lay down. This will hold a ton of feed. It is super heavy duty, easily moved with anything with forks or with a couple strong people. The lid locks in, it's completely waterproof. I can lift up this end, slide this lid completely over. I've got some flies in here right now. I can slide this lid right over and it will allow me to put my feed in here. You can adjust the outtake as far as how much goes out. You can see down here at the bottom, we've got a nice rain lip up here so the rain doesn't run down, and then our animals can come in there and eat. We've got our creep right here, our creep gate right here that they can get in and out. This is fully adjustable. We can adjust the width. We can adjust this bar for the height. Everything puts together really well with little simple drop pins. You just move it, it all breaks down, you put it in place, you lock it in with drop pins, and it is there. Minerals, I like to use the Tartar brand with the wind vane on the top of it. This wind vane right here causes this thing to turn with the prevailing wind. I've got my Linessa Farms Foundation Feed Sheep Mineral Plus Vitamin in here right now. Now I do have goats out here, but because I have goats and sheep, I have my sheep mineral because it doesn't have any copper in it. And then of course my waters, and I've got some free choice sodium bicarb out here as well. And we are ready to rock and roll. You saw down here that I had my shelter. I had my little Quonset hut that I put in. Not absolutely necessary. They can get little bits of shade from this. Of course, with the grass being this tall, they can just bed down during the day. You can see Mavis is bedded down in here. She's in the shade. But as it gets lower, it'll open it up and expose them to a little bit more sunlight. So, you know, I like to give them ample opportunity to get into some shade. We've got a tree line over here that they get some shade from those trees, but you know, the more you can do, the better. They get hot. We keep our sheep nice and shorn, but still, you know, they do get warm. I can see we've got some sheep out there. Like you said, you can barely see them. Hey, everybody. Here's one of our Quonset huts that we have. We have a few of them that we put out here. Just gives them enough protection to get out of the wind and the rain. And it'll help them to get out of if we get hail or anything like that. Well, I hope this helped to answer some of the questions that you may have had, helped you kind of get an idea of what we do and how we set up our paddocks here on Linessa Farms. Again, you know, this isn't the end-all be-all, the absolute way to do it. This is just an idea for you. I want you to make sure that you check out other farms, see how they're doing things as well, and see what works for you. Not one thing is going to work for you on your farm. You need to glean as much information as you can and apply it to your farm. I am Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again, and I look forward to seeing all of you again next time.